What's up, boys? How are you?
You're just a floating head on your background. I love it. We'll edit everything else out.
You want
That's
me
good.
to? Yeah,
No, it's
okay.
good. It was not a critique. I love. We
Oh,
like
okay.
we like plain backgrounds.
How are you guys? Everything good?
Everything's good. How about you? You look like you've been having some fun out on the timeline.
Fun is one word. Trying to be a little bit more vocal is probably another way to phrase it. I mean, we're looking at the market and like, man, it's been a depressing couple months or so overall, to say the very least. But I think, look, it sort of signals that we're in the bear market, and we love bear markets because it's better for building overall, which is what we get really excited about.
Can we maybe just start off with hearing from you what the opportunity that Camp is running at is? Feels kind of abstract to me, to be quite frank, and
Definitely,
I think
definitely.
landing that would be helpful for a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, the one-liner on Camp is transforming IP ownership in the AI world that we're moving towards, but like that's obviously a very like ethereal concept, and what actually does that mean? In the future, we believe that 95% of all IP generated will be done via AI. And traditionally people think of IP as like your scripts, your like music scoring, your entertainment, your songs, like your film and whatnot. IP goes significantly beyond that. It includes things like code. It includes things like the agents that you actually develop. And in a world where we see agentic driven IP as sort of the driver of everything, provenance matters the most. You're the creator of something in the first place. I know every restaurant in New York, I create a Resi bot that basically is like an agent that tells you where I want to eat based on certain parameters. I should get compensated for that. We believe the future of that will all be on chain in the first place. And that's really where we think the industry is going. And Camp seeks to be sort of that infrastructure layer that sits as that IP layer. When we think about AI and sort of like the AI wars, we think about there being three different armies. Number one is like model, which is clearly commoditized in the worlds of like the DeepSeek R1s, GPT, Anthropic, whatnot, pick your poison overall. The second being compute, which clearly like everybody's tried to pitch me decentralized compute for the last year and a half, but you look at like Nvidia's market cap and like it's bigger than like 15, it's literally bigger than the entirety of crypto, all just one company itself. And then the third layer, which we think is sort of the one that wins in the wars of AI, is the IP layer, because the actual distinguishing on models is the data on which it's trained, and that's where IP really sits today.
Can you talk about, I guess, your specific implementation of on-chain IP and the problems it solves with the traditional IP world for this AI-dominated world we're moving towards?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, blockchain works for provenance because you have real-time timestamps, you have transparency. You can't have one company just basically rug pull you under. Which, in recent light of events, you've seen with like GPT Reddit as a lawsuit, you've seen with Stable Diffusion and Getty Images. Camp becomes that layer of where all provenance is established. We do this via two things that we built called the Proof of Provenance Protocol. The first of that is called Origin, which is the easiest way to register and onboard your IP on chain in the first place. That can be anything. As of right now, it works with images, music, text as well. And with that, you can also set your terms and conditions. One of the benefits of smart contracts, obviously, is like historically the way you license IP deals is pretty gross. Like you're spending north of $500,000, spending 2 to 3 months with the lawyers, which is obviously not a great process ever. And at the end of the day, you have like one document, and you're like, I guess this works overall. But instead, what you can really do is with smart contracts, you can say unless somebody actually pays you the fee or unless somebody gives you a royalty, then you literally can't remix the IP in the first place. And that's what we built with Origin. The second thing that we built is Matrix, which is the easiest way to train and deploy an agent based on IP that already exists on chain. We think this is pretty important because we think the future of the world is agent-to-agent interactions. And in a world where that exists, you need user-specific agents. And so being able to train an agent and deploy it based on your own IP is what really matters at the end of the day. And so that's sort of the Origin plus Matrix form what we call the provenance protocol, which sits embedded into the L1 that is Camp Network.
Can you give me the pitch for, I guess, assuming I'm an IP holder or just a random dude who creates stuff online and wants IP around my stuff to actually come to Camp and, I don't know what the word for it is, but kind of canonize my IP? I assume my assumption would be the kind of rest of the stack isn't built out in the sense where there's going to be a bunch of models that are training on my data and I actually see economic flows. So am I more betting on this future, or is that the kind of full circle in place today?
Look, it's a really good question. And like, you're right. Like betting on the economic models of the future of like people using your IP to actually train their own agents is probably a 2 to 3 year timeline down from it right now. But I mean, every creator is moving towards tokenizing their IP in the first place. That's not like an opinion, it's a fact, right? Like you're seeing the entire way in which the entire industry of film is changed and being financed. Republic gave a talk at Con this year about like, and I think I like mentioned this on the podcast, but like, why the fuck would you ever do a 25% JP Morgan credit facility in order to produce a non-scripted? Because they're obviously doing predatory terms on you when you can literally do like a 3-month lending pool at 25% APR and then instead you're paying like 6.5%. That's a way better deal overall. And you're also using it as like a community building awareness tool overall. And so we're starting to see a lot of these creators focus on onboarding IP on chain in the first place, looking to use it as like a fan engagement tool, looking to use it as like a community pool as well. And so that's why it's already happening in real time. This is not something that we think is like, we have to, and shockingly, when we talk to like the big entertainment studios and whatnot, we don't have to convince them about this. They're already sold. It's more so just the actual timelines of, as you guys know, media lags a little bit compared to technology, but this is happening in real time pretty quickly. We already have a couple of like the big Netflix IPs on chain in the first place, and a couple more are coming, but they're using it for things like tokenizing royalties, right? If you hold the token, you're entitled to a percentage of the royalties overall. The other thing that we see pretty interesting is like for Black Mirror, if you're one of the top 100 holders, Black Mirror is releasing like a comic book series. You actually get to pick the cover if you're one of the top 100 holders for 100 of those issues overall. So seeing like new ways of fan engagement and actual economic incentives on top of that as well.
You said something there that I'm not sure I'm curious about. You said every creator is moving towards tokenizing their IP. That's not an obvious true statement to me. So I'm curious, what are you seeing that I'm not? What's happening out there?
Look, we can take it like vertical by vertical, right? Most of the big entertainment studios all know that they need some sort of on-chain presence for the sole fact that they want to own control over their IP in general. Like this is what happened in the streaming wars, where basically like you had these big tech companies come in and basically have bidding wars, and then they all started to consolidate and buy studios directly. The result of that is the most valuable content right now is if you're an independent third party that can basically go out and say, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, I have this great piece of content, go buy it from me directly. And so every creator right now, every single person in the industry is, instead of saying like, oh, I'll take $1 of salary, looking to keep $1 of control over their own IP in general. Blockchain represents ownership. That's why we're starting to see a lot of these people go after it, because the real value is in owning the economics on the back end, as opposed to like getting like a 10% production fee upfront overall today.
Right. So people are treating IP as sort of an equity instrument at some level, or there's sort of
100%.
And then you're making
right. Yeah, and Jess, I'd say there's a bigger emphasis on owning that equity as opposed to like getting like $1 of sponsorship, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's been a big trend. I guess the place that I always struggle as I think about, if you think about the traditional IP world, this is like legal structures that, if you're in the United States, you have one impact on, and ultimately something like copyright you kind of default into. And then of course that is different in different jurisdictions. But the idea of I guess, how much do I have to make like the proactive choice to come and onboard into Camp and to sort of see Camp as like my, record of account for this IP and trust that that's going to be like the default versus, I guess, just defaulting into the traditional, legal structure that we already have here. I'm trying to understand how much of a decision I need to make to choose you guys versus other options that may exist.
Yeah, Jess, let me flip it on you. What are the other options that exist in the market today?
Doing nothing, I think, is one, and then I think I guess I could theoretically write it to some random blockchain, though I think like the ultimate economic value or utility of that I think is still open, and I'm assuming. My read is that sort of this future AI carrot here is the thing that will get a lot of the sort of the labs type approaches from these big content or IP producers to be interested in this. I guess I'm trying to figure out how much of a lift it is from that early adopter set to this being the default place, or what you need to do to happen.
It's a really good question, man. I think about this in the context of like not just Camp, but like all blockchain, where it's like, how do people really onboard to blockchain in the first place? And it's like either A, they go to some sex and buy like the token, or like B, they go to like the blockchain's website and they click like launch, and then they go to the DEX and they like swap for the token there effectively. And so like one of the theses that we take is this will never reach mainstream adoption unless we have a successful application there, because candidly, you can't expect people to like do everything on the blockchain itself. You almost want to meet people where they already are. That's kind of one of the big themes at Camp. And so in order to do that, people use apps. Like nobody goes to sorry, pardon my French, but like nobody goes to AWS. They use like,
we're here. It's fine. It's our show.
Nice. Okay, cool.
We own the rails, baby.
Oh, you own the rails? Okay, cool. IP zone. But like nobody goes to like AWS, right? Like it would be so stupid overall. Like everybody goes to the application layer that sits on top of AWS. And so one of the things that we really do is work pretty closely with our application layer And I think like you kind of have to king make apps to some degree in that regard, but things that are actually usable such that people are actually using them, and then they see directly how Origin is embedded into the applications. Then it's like, oh shit, all I have to do is click a button. Like that's really easy, as opposed to like go to campnetwork.xyz, like launch the app portal, then see what it has to do. So the biggest thing is really creating that like friendly UX that people actually want to use, and then meet people where they already are versus trying to force new consumer behavior.
There is a very big consumer focus here. Is that these applications that unlock new experiences around IP are going to be the big economic drivers or consumer adoption drivers, as opposed to, maybe fundamentally rewriting how IP is financed and monetized, as maybe something like this gets integrated into the back end of Netflix.
Yeah, they're both happening in real time. Like Netflix actually has a ton of shows that are basically tokenizing their IP for the sole reason we're like, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but Netflix's model historically is basically like, hey, we see this like studio, they're producing something pretty interesting. How much is it going to cost? And they're like, it's 10 million bucks to produce. And they say, cool, here's 12 million bucks, keep the 2 million bucks, we'll own all the IP. And then they basically go out and make a banger out of it, like Squid Games, and then they fucking sell everything with Squid Games, and Netflix keeps all the profits. It's a brilliant business model. Instead, now people are like, God damn, if I had known that, I would have rather kept all the economics myself and produced it myself. And so that's where like that tokenization component's coming in. So like Black Mirror actually recently did this. I think I brought that one up earlier. A lot of films are starting to do this because candidly, like in the streaming era, films are actually done worse than TV shows because of like, it is an interesting
Too long,
dynamic.
man. Too long. I ain't got time for that.
The interesting thing is like, if you think about it, 10 episodes of 30 minutes is still longer than a film, but like it theoretically you splice it up and you watch it over like whatever, 3 to 4 days. So it's slightly less. But yeah, exactly what you said. So like we're actually working with a couple Bollywood films right now where number one, like what works really well is when they have like a rampant fan community where everybody's like, oh my God, I fucking love that movie. Like things that kind of hit on that are like the Mission Impossible series in the West, for example, like including myself, love Mission Impossible. And so everybody wants to feel that sense of ownership. So to clarify, it's already being built in real time on that piece. The longer term, like $1 trillion unlock on this is the modeling and like changing the way that data is licensed effectively.
Right.
Can you talk about the enforcement piece? I feel like it's kind of critical to this whole economic system working. It also seems like a very hard challenge in this kind of media abundant world we live in.
Yeah, dude, it's ridiculously difficult. Like nobody's going to tell you. If somebody sits here with a straight face and says, I've solved the way that Disney is able to license Marvel out for 500 different business lines, they're completely full of shit. Like there's nothing even close. We are like starting on what I call like the long tail of IP overall, where it's almost like the IP of the internet. And so that becomes a lot easier because let's be honest, nobody's spending like $30 million to make like an Iron Man plushie toy today. Like outside of Pudgy, nobody has that like brand recognition in the Web 2 world today. So it becomes a lot easier when you assume like user owned IP. They basically want like a cut if something happens or remixing, but candidly, everybody's just like, let's do it for the community and let's see. It's very like kumbaya as of right now. With some of the bigger IPs that I worked with, I don't know if you guys saw, but like Minto is coming to camp. We did another thing with the Moonbirds overall. Those are all being done via a combination of like on-chain, on-off, and off-chain. Basically, the term is set and like it's negotiated all off-chain, and then an attestation is done that like these are the terms of the licensing overall. So there's almost like a hybrid approach, which I envision being sort of the future for the next 2 to 3 years until we reach like scale when everybody feels comfortable about this overall, in which case everything will move on-chain. But as of right now, there is like totally a legal off-chain agreement as well.
Makes sense. I'm just deeply fascinated with understanding how folks who are sort of sitting in your seat, you're stewarding an ecosystem, a blockchain. These are no small initiatives to get off the ground. And even once you have them off the ground, sort of like the long-term sustainability of them becomes a whole other big challenge that I think many will fail to ultimately solve. So I'm curious how you are seeing the revenue model, the value creation model. How do you conceptualize how you are creating and capturing value as a network in this world?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And like you mentioned, we're like getting something off the ground. Running a blockchain is the worst business because it's like 3 different startups all in one. Because first you have to like raise on like this idea, then you have to like raise on the tested idea, and then you're like, oh shit, now that it's mainnet, everybody hates us because like that's how all blockchains really work. It's once you launch a token, people hate you, and so you basically have to like rebuild your community and rebuild your developer ecosystem all over from scratch. And so where we see economic value, in traditional sense of like the L1 world, it's like network fees and whatnot. But I think of blockchains as similar to the software businesses, where if we think about like a business like Slack or Salesforce, the marginal cost of adding a user is like 0.00001 cents. And so in that lens, like the network fee should probably trend towards closer to zero, which means that the only real like value extraction for an L1 is MEV plus DA. And like a lot of folks have sort of outsourced DA. There's like a whole Ethereum debate that we can get into or not. But that's sort of like the pure economic value. Where we think this trends much longer term is towards this like marketplace of data licensing where we clip like a small percentage on every single thing overall. You know, similar to like I think about like Airbnb. What Airbnb did for people who have like idle homes is gave them a way to monetize it while taking a small percentage. What we're doing is everybody in the world has exponentially more data than homes. And so being able to find a way to actually give them some sort of economic benefit for that, we think is like a ridiculous economic unlock overall. And granted, like this is not going to happen overnight. Like you're seeing the 10-year-long battle of IP copyright versus model training enter its heyday right now. And so that's why we think we're sort of positioned well for the future overall.
Interesting. So yeah, IP has new assets, those assets being in demand to trading on your network, and there being fees off of that economic value. Interesting. I'm curious, maybe I think it can be hard to sort of step as far out on sort of the edge of exploration and just the multitude of different categories that are out there. And so you're sitting on the edge looking at sort of the impact that on-chain IP licensing and enforced economic models might have on the economy or on creators. So I'm curious, what is that 10-year 1000x unlock that you see Camp having?
Yeah, I mean, look, the dream is that every single time somebody wants to build an agent, it's all done via training the agent based on IP registered via Camp. That's what we think like the simple goal for this all is. It's changing the way that you own IP in the transformation world, in the like agent world. The other thing we think is being interesting is like there's going to be a whole new category of entertainment that will all be built on chain in the first place. For like obvious things, number one is like getting your community involved from day one, having a built-in fan base. That should all be launched on Camp as well for that new like blockchain native IP is sort of the category. We want everything to be done on Camp.
I love it, man. I mean, it's been fun. I think we touched base probably. I think it's Singapore. Was that the last time that we chatted?
I
It
think
was
so.
forever
We chatted
ago.
in Singapore. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to sort of see the arc, and I think many of that era have sort of struggled through the challenge of getting something off the ground, coming out with the TGE, obviously tokens doing what tokens have been doing for these L1 projects, and I think seeing the rubber hit the road here right now, and seeing both these visions and the ability to execute against it, and then the big question mark of timing come to play here, I find fascinating, and I've definitely been following along over the last little while. So I appreciate you hopping on with us today and helping add a bit more context, at least to how I view Camp here, and definitely worthwhile, I think, checking in again in the future here as you continue to build out the application layer.
Really exciting, guys, and appreciate all the time.
Awesome, brother. Thank you.
Peace, man.